to my channel. If you are new, welcome. Please make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, comment questions or concerns. So real quick, as I stated in my last video, I said that I would share, my last video was actually my spring break video from Miami. I stated that I would share a slight experience, or slightly some of the experiences I had while being in Miami. So, story time. So we touched down in Miami March 8th, which was a Thursday. And we flew into Fort Lauderdale. And from Fort Lauderdale, we took a Lyft to Miami. So our Lyft driver happened to be a Spanish-speaking Lyft driver, which, I mean, I was expecting these things. However, I personally, even though Spanish is my first language, I don't use it unless I need to. Like, I really do not. Unless I'm with someone that genuinely is struggling with English, or they ask me if, you know, anybody speaks Spanish, etc. I don't speak to them in Spanish. And it's not more so like some being petty type of thing. It's just more so for my sanity, because eventually, as you can see, I'm obviously black. Eventually it leads to something ignorant being said, and it might not be meant like to be ignorant, or it might not be, you know, the person might not mean to say it in whatever way I take it, but I take it that way. And yeah, so we get there, and you know, he's struggling, and I know he's struggling with his Spanish, and my roommate's looking at me like, sis, like, are you not gonna say anything, whatever? And so I don't know at what point it was where she was like, oh, she speaks Spanish, and I looked at her like, and he's like, oh, like, got excited or whatever, and I'm looking at him like, yeah, I speak Spanish. And so he was like, oh, okay, and then switched completely from English to Spanish, and it was, you know, like, at first it was all cool, whatever, you know. I was telling him where my family was from, and then he was asking questions about like how long we were staying, and like if we were in school, and giving us ideas of places to hit up while we were down there. And then it got awkward, like at some point, like to the point where he was like talking my head off. So I would, like, whenever he would get quiet, I would talk to my roommate so that he wouldn't talk to me, because he was talking my head off low-key. And so even my roommate was like, I didn't expect him to talk with them. I'm like, that's one of the situations that happen. Either they'll talk my head off, no offense, or they'll end up saying something smart, which he ended up doing. Not smart, but like ignorant, which he ended up doing both. He was talking my head off, and then eventually was like, oh, you said your family's from where? From Honduras? All this is in Spanish. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, okay. Oh, well, you came out black. That's kind of what happens when two black people make a baby. When two black people create another human, you know, especially when they come down from a line of black people, like centuries and years of black people. Yeah. So I looked at him and I was like, yeah, my parents are black. He was like, oh, you know, and I cannot remember what else he said. After that, I just wasn't listening anymore, because at that point it's like, you just ruined it. So that's just one of the stories of things that people that look like me, that come from Latin American countries, go through. And to some people it's probably like, oh, you're exaggerating, da da da. That's annoying to constantly have to be reminded that you're obviously black. It's annoying. I look at myself in the mirror a lot. I wake up every morning and look at myself in the mirror, and I've known for 20 plus years that I'm black. So you don't have to remind me that I'm black or say stuff like that. I'm like, okay. That's just one story. Another story I actually had, oh, well, also Miami. So we get there, he was telling us the stuff, blah, blah, blah. We stayed in Little Havana, and the people who were giving us the key for the Airbnb, they were Cubans, white Cubans, like looked full blown Caucasian, um, and they didn't know English either. Now that's a different situation. Like the Lyft driver was from Venezuela, and I'm used to a Venezuelan, Ecuadorian, Colombian accent. Cuban accent, I ain't grow up on Cuban accents. Like my dad has one friend who's Cuban, and even when he speaks, I just kind of like don't listen because I can't keep up. So that's kind of how that was with the Cubans. I was just like, oh yeah, like, you know, the Lyft driver was like, oh, ella habla español, and I was just like, gosh, okay. So then the lady was like, oh, okay, great, and like in Spanish or whatever, and she started talking, and I was just like, I don't know what you're saying, like, you know, which is another thing people seem to like not understand. Like, if you want to learn Spanish, please try to have multiple friends that speak Spanish that are from different countries. Like, have you one friend that's from Central America, one South American friend, one Caribbean Caribbean Spanish speaking country friend, so you can get a gist of it. You know what I'm saying? Because Mexican accent is different from Honduran accent. Honduran is different from a Dominican accent. Dominican accent is different from Cuban accent. Cuban accent is different from a Venezuelan accent. Like, you're not going to learn Spanish like perfectly if you're just hanging out with one specific group, because one word for my country could mean a whole completely thing for another country. And also, so today, it's funny because it's just funny how this video was already planned for today, and then I had another situation occur. So I've been eating pupusas a lot here lately. Since I moved to this area, it's just like I've been eating pupusas a lot. I woke up and I was like, I want pupusas en horchata. Okay, called in, made my order. I pulled up and I was like, tengo una orden de 3 pupusas y una horchata. You know, great, okay. Mind you, I go to the same spot all the time. I get the same thing, the same 3 pupusas, same large horchata. And the man, like, he, you know, like, he always speaks to me. It's in Spanish. He's never said anything, never asked any questions. Or at least I don't recall him asking questions. I feel like he has in the past, but didn't make it awkward. Today, he made it awkward. So, he was like, oh, hablas el español muy bien. ¿De dónde eres? And I was like, Honduras. Which he basically asked or said, you speak Spanish very well. Where are you from? And I said, Honduras. Obviously, like, I'm not necessarily from Honduras. That's just how I learned, because my family is Honduran. And so he was like, oh, no pareces. Again, you didn't necessarily say it, but I know exactly what you meant when you said that. He said no pareces, which means you don't look like it. Dude, like, what am I supposed to look like? There's no freaking look to how we're supposed to freaking look. Like, at all. There's just no look to us. At freaking all. So, I just kind of like, at that point, he made it awkward. You know, I was just kind of like, You know that awkward smile you make before you're just like, nah, like. So I left, and that was that. It's just like, certain comments like that tick me off. Certain comments like that is what leads me to sometimes not ever want to speak out on my experiences as a Latina. And it's more so because it gets draining to have to constantly hear unnecessary comments. You do not have to remind me, you know, that I am Black. I can see that I don't look like what the media wants Latinas to look like. You do not have to say stuff like that. You could have just left it at, oh, okay, cool. Oh, okay, bien. You gotta say, oh, no pareces. Okay, like, you know, I should have really been like, oh, so what am I supposed to look like? But it gets tiring, it gets draining, and things like that is why I have so many relatives, mostly the ones that are first, second generation, that do not, you know, rep, you know, what they grew up listening to, what they grew up doing, like their culture, basically. Because, yeah, we're garifunas, but I'm not about to sit here and act like I don't eat tortillas, like I don't eat baleadas, and don't speak Spanish. My people ended up in a Spanish-speaking country, so we adapted to the Spanish-speaking country's culture So I'm not going to sit here and just say, oh, no, I'm not Latina. That is a whole different discussion for another day. But, dog, like, I literally have so many relatives that be like, that's why I don't tell people. And it's funny because my cousins or my relatives that will say that they don't tell people they're Latinos, they're the ones that have the Spanish-speaking last name, you know, like the stereotypical, the Lopez, the Martinez, etc., versus me, I have a French last name. So it's like, it's just funny to me. But it's not funny. There's no reason I should have to feel like I have to hide what I know just so that I don't get any ignorant comments, just for my sanity. Like, at this point, it's 2018. You should definitely understand by now that there are black people in every single in every single Latin American country. Like, I don't care what anyone you know has met, whatever has told you. I can stop it. Stop it. We're sick and tired of it. The slight microaggressions, I go into the store and I speak to you in Spanish, or I go into the store. I actually got another story. So a few months ago, I think it was like December or January, my mama had got me, I forgot what she gave me. She gave me something. Oh, she gave me masa para hacer tortillas. And I was like, well, I got the frijoles, I just don't have queso and I don't have crema. So I told my dad that, because at the moment I didn't have a car, and so he was bringing me home, and he was like, oh, here's a store, it's just around your neighborhood, da da da. Okay, so we went in the store. I already knew what I was going in the store for, so I went straight for the queso and the crema. I get in line, you know, and everyone, this is probably a Salvadoran, like, place, because their accent seemed Central American, but it seemed more like Salvadoran, if anything. So I'm in line, everyone's in front of me, okay, and I noticed everyone that was in front of me got spoke to in Spanish. However, the moment I got to the register, the lady switched to her English, which wasn't that great, you know, not saying anything, but it was just like, if Spanish seems to be what's easier for you to speak in, and you were speaking to everyone else in Spanish, why did you switch to English? Obviously, it's a rhetorical question. We obviously know why. So I had tweeted about it, and people were literally like, oh, well, is this, and these comment was coming from non-black Latinos. Well, isn't this America? And I was looking like, if I was to say something like that to you all hell would break loose. So why is it okay for you to say that to me? Just because I don't see how that was making sense in their head, but whatever. My problem was more so, you spoke to everyone else prior to me in Spanish. As soon as I got to the register, because you saw my skin color, you decided to switch to English when you could have kept going speaking in Spanish. This is not a big supermarket. This is literally like a little tiendita that I feel like only if you're Latino you know it's there, because I did not know it was there. My father was the one that knew it was there. And literally I went to go pick up stuff that not, you know, on average an African American is not going to go grab. I grabbed crema sula and queso hondureño duro. Nobody knows, on average, nobody knows where Honduras is. So what made you think I was an African American just randomly buying crema sula and queso duro? Oh, and I had banana soda. All of those 3 items are Honduran items. The least you would think is that I've at least been to Honduras before, or that I'm Honduran. But you didn't assume that. You didn't. You just assumed, oh, esta negra solo habla inglés. No, esta negra habla el español y lo habla muy bien. Lo escribe y lo lee también. So, ¿cuál es el problema? I just get frustrated. And I'm trying to figure out how it's going to be for me out in the world eventually, because I've been in school for, you know, a while now. And I go to HBCU where I'm just used to being around, you know, black people as a whole. I don't necessarily have to use my Spanish unless I'm out of school. And like I said, I don't use it unless I need to, because I'm so sick and tired of the ignorant comments like, oh, hablas el español muy bien. ¿Dónde aprendiste? En mi casa. Yo aprendí en mi casa con mi mamá y mi papá y mis abuelos, porque eso es lo que ellos me hablan a mí en español. Oh, no pareces. Y sí, yo sé que soy una prieta negra. No me tienes que recordar porque yo me veo en el espejo todos los días. No sabía que había negros en Honduras. The soccer team has black people on it. What are you saying? My thing is, a lot of y'all watch soccer, so it's like, are y'all not watching the same soccer team I'm watching? Because there's dead at least 2 black people on the team, and I know for a fact I'm not bugging. Anyways, my slight rant is over because this really could go on forever, but I'm not about to waste your time. Like I said, if you have any questions, comments, and or concerns, let me know. Follow me on Twitter. I have way more rants on Twitter. So, yeah. Me llamo Yana Blanco, and hasta luego, mi gente.